Hello there. Herschel, Joe, Daryl, Molly, Jorge, the Roberts. I see you guys. Hope everybody's well tonight. Just doing what we do. What's up, Ricky? Anything is possible. Thank you for rating the Rumble over there. What is up, folks? Who am I missing? Over to YouTube, and we'll start this up. Fred gets first. How you doing? Cheers on the iced tea. Roving Fungus is here. What's up, Chris W? I see ya. Hello, Celia. We'll see you over on Rumble. Here we go. Trouble Blinds happening now. We're going to go some vampires tonight. Why not, right? All right. Let's do it. Here we go.
But I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
With the rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1 0 1 1 1 0 1 1
Doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're
secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
Well, good evening, and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting, which you can find at KUAPDB.com, just like it sounds, KUAPDB.com. And you can listen to the live show, basically 24 hours of amazing programming from not just Troubled Minds, but Troubled Minds and Friends. Please go check it out. A lot of people active over there making incredible things. Please support the radio station, support independent media, support independent ideas. We're also on 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. That's terrestrial radio. And you know what we like to do as part of these conversations. So really, like I said, politics is one thing, and you can shrug and go, whatevs, I can look, they don't listen to me. You vote and you still don't get anything out of it. They just do dumb stuff over and over again. So I tune it out, at least for these conversations. Look, I'm as frustrated as anybody with the state of the world. And I think instead of railing against that and, being a sort of a malcontent, let's look at things that are still good in this world. Let's talk about storytelling. Let's talk about weird historical places and artifacts and things that are worthy of conversation instead of just the same political drivel everybody always does, the politricks. Shout out Herschel. It's just, it's exhausting. So let's do this instead. This is what Troubled Minds has really mostly always been. We did some parapolitics back in the day, but it's just too much. It's just, forget it. Anyway, tonight we're talking vampires. You see? And let's go vampires. Because there's, once again, so I'm trying to find these just beautiful, wonderful stories from history that really don't get enough attention, that really have been sort of sidelined in the historical context. And this one is the Highgate Vampire. And I'd never heard of this, which it's an incredibly wild story. And it's very much all the things Troubled Minds is. Egregores, vampires, it's going to be occultists battling in a showdown, a magical showdown on Friday the 13th. Crazy stuff, right? The more I was reading about this, the more I was like, wow, how have I never heard of this? And apparently, I guess the last podcast on the left did one of these a long time ago. I can't listen to them. They're just a bunch of shrieking memes anymore. But yeah, whatever. Not to throw shade, but we all do our own thing, and we all do our own thing, reasonably well for what it is. And we're a little different. But anyway, so let's begin. Let's get onto it and talk about actual vampires. Now, here's the story, right? This starts in 1968. Okay. 1 second. Allow me to get this in order. One moment, please. Let's grab that. Okay, here we go. So in 1968, Christopher Lee put on a cape and walked through Highgate Cemetery in North London while cameras rolled. He was playing Dracula. Everyone knew it was fiction. Everyone knew the cemetery was just a set. And then, sometime in the next 12 months, something started appearing in the cemetery after dark. Something tall, with burning eyes. Something that did not leave when the cameras did. The story of the Highgate Vampire is one of the strangest episodes in modern paranormal history. Not because of what was seen, but because of what happened to the people who saw it. 2 men claimed ownership of the entity. They spent 50 years at war over it. One went to prison. The other says he staked and burned the monster in a basement. Neither of them stopped to ask the question that should have been obvious from the beginning. What happens when you film a vampire movie in a cemetery and something decides to stay in character? Yeah. Tonight we're going to talk about dead foxes, drained of blood, about a 100-year-old corpse dragged from its grave and staked through the heart on Lammas Day, about a sleepwalking girl who led a self-proclaimed bishop into the catacombs. And of course, how do I make this work now? Just a second, please. I think my mouse actually died. The battery here. Let me plug this in. My goodness. Yes, that's true. Okay, no wonder. All right. Anyway, let me continue now that I can actually scroll again. All right. So about a sleepwalking girl who led a self-proclaimed bishop into the catacombs, about a Friday the 13th when a mob broke into a cemetery carrying homemade stakes because they saw it on television, and about the feedback loop between fiction and reality that may be the most important and least understood mechanism in the entire paranormal field. Of course, the lines are open tonight. We are taking your calls at the usual new number because the old number still hasn't transferred over. Technology is fantastic when it works. That number would be 702-857-6939. Should be working. Everything should be in place. And there we go. That sets us up to where we need to be. Now, like I said, the more I was reading about this, the more I was like, damn, this goes deep. Not just deep in the paranormal sense. Like, as usual, you can look at this any way you like. If you're like, you know what, I could buy the fact that vampires are real. Cool. Let's talk about that. Or if you're like, nah, hell no. Like, no, Mike, stop. That's cool too, because there's so much in this story for every type of mind. Again, we're going to talk egregores tonight. We're going to talk about human residual energy, which I'm always talking about. And in this sense, this is a perfect example of how that can run out of control, how this can turn one thing into the next thing, and even a loop of, let's say, cyclical energy that seems to art imitates life, which imitates art again. And this is exactly what happened in this story. So that's where we start. A lot of things happen in here, and I don't know. I don't really know the answers. And by the way, that's a great time to drop all of the disclaimers. This is not there's no truth here, period. It's just conversations about wild things by dark of night. That's it. So if you're here for truth, you're in the absolute wrong place. I'm just talking ideas. I'm just looking at history, and I'm just wondering what in the hell is actually going on out there. That's that. All the links are in the description per usual. If you want to check it out, I do encourage you to do that. Please do. Go fact check me. Go follow up on these stories and these ideas. I'm just a person. I'm not perfect, and I will get things wrong. I try not to, but yeah. And I will let you know when I'm veering off the beaten path and making up narratives. That's the whole point. Okay. All right. So the Troubled Minds newsletter, check it out. Link's going to be in the description, and all the amazing stories that came out of this. Again, many links, and a new term. Ostension. We'll talk about that as we go tonight. Anyway, one more time, 702-957-6939. Love to hear your thoughts, but we're going to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsor. In this case, that will be the Stoic Mindset. Do not go anywhere. More Troubled Minds in exactly 1 minute. We got James coming up in your calls as well. Have you ever heard of the Highgate Vampire? And you think it's possible for art to imitate life, to imitate art, and in a cyclical fashion where we continue filling the void whether we want to or not? That's what's on my mind tonight. Be right back. More Troubled Minds in exactly 1 minute. See you on the other side of the break. If I can find my button. There we go. Feeling stressed? Overwhelmed? In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get swept away by our emotions. Take a breath and find your inner strength with the Stoic Minute.
You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
The ancient Stoic philosophers understood that we can't control everything in life, but we can control how we react.
The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts.
Focus on what you can influence. Cultivate a positive mindset, and let go of what you can't change. Find your inner strength. Live each day with courage, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Embrace the Stoic virtues and find peace within. The Stoic Minute, brought to you by Jack in Oregon. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Let us continue, shall we? Okay, so the Highgate Vampire. Now, the monster that wrote itself is the most fascinating part about this to me. Look, we're storytellers, and we've talked about in the past how storytelling is the most powerful technology for a number of reasons, okay? Don't ever mess with the bard, because if you do, the bard can tell a tall tale that could outlive you for generations. You get it? You get it? That's what I'm talking about tonight. And it's a strange thing that even if you had a colossal life and accomplished tons, that a well-established smear campaign can wipe all of that off the face of the earth. Interesting, right? Well, maybe not, but in this case, it starts to make your tinfoil tingle when you start to think about where we came from and where all this heads next. Because what do we remember? We remember the good stories. We don't remember toil and trial. We do sometimes, but for the most part, we remember whoever can tell the best story. All right? And that's what this is about tonight. We'll get into the Highgate Cemetery again. Here's the short brief. This movie was filmed with Christopher Lee, and then after they filmed this movie, within a year, they started seeing vampires in this particular cemetery. But it wasn't just vampires. It was a number of things. It was spooks and spirits and eyes and apparitions and all kinds of different things. It wasn't really a vampire per se yet. It wasn't named as such. But then and there were two occultists, one who spent some time in the graveyard chronicling some things. I'll tell you about them as we go. And then he didn't want to name it a vampire because it seemed stupidly obvious that they had just shot a vampire film in the cemetery. Well, he didn't want to call it that. But then another occultist, of course, looking for attention and newspaper headlines and all the rest, was very quick to call it a vampire. And suddenly, the ability of people to see disparate paranormal elements coalesced into the vampire archetype itself. And then people started seeing a vampire. Now, again, mass hysteria, a trick of the media, these occultists maybe staging things for attention. There's a lot that goes into that, but that's the wild part. But then, of course, they started on Friday the 13th, they ran one of the big stories with this in the newspaper, and a mob attacked the graveyard. They came with stakes. They were trying to find this vampire and take him out. Okay. So the cops had to try and intervene. And from that point on, at least in this short space of all the activity around the graveyard itself, the cops actually had to run like sort of a nighttime ghost patrol to keep people out of this graveyard that were trying to dig up corpses and put stakes through their desiccated bodies. Weird, right? Super weird. Anyway, so that's where this begins. And then those two occultists play heavily into this. I'll tell you their names, links are in the description, and it's a wild tale. That's where we begin, and a lot of things to talk about. One more time, if you want to be part of the discussion tonight, 702-857-6939. There you go. I remember the number. And let's do it. Let's go to James in Michigan, Salcedo Paranormal. What's up, brother? Thanks for jumping in here. Always a pleasure. You're on Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? And go right ahead.
I'm okay. Hopefully you can hear me all right.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. You sound great.
Good. Yeah. So this is a fascinating case. I have heard of it, but it's been years since I have heard of it. So I'm not clear on many of the details, but this is fascinating to me because this sort of is a more extreme version, or at least a more, I don't know, it seems like a more extreme version possibly, of something I've noticed in famously haunted places where there's a legend about an apparition, but there's not always historical evidence to back up how the person that passed away died to become that apparition. And yet this apparition is still seen over and over again for decades on the property. So then the question to me is always, was there some consciousness there that took on the shape of the person from this legend? Or was it not a consciousness to begin with, but it became one with all the emotions and thoughts and energy that were focused on this one story, almost literally turning a story into a conscious being?
Exactly. The egregore, which we always talk about here. And in that sense, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? The legend is ancient, we're told. However, once you sort of consolidate that into the public mind's eye now, in the here and now, suddenly the ancient stuff kind of goes out the window because we start maybe changing this into our own modern version. And then suddenly it's in everybody's mind's eye. Everybody's seeing it. Everybody's talking about it. And this merging of the old and the new in that mind's eye is what I like to call that human residual energy. It is storytelling. It is folklore. It is all of these things, people whispering in dark corners about things that go bump in the night. But then how do you define it? I think there's a really weird bit to this where it still eludes what it means in terms of modern neuroscience, in terms of modern culture. And so that's why we talk about this stuff. And I'll get to something, like I said, there's this thing called, and I've never heard of this, but it's a folklore thing. It's called ostension. And that's the term for this, sort of. And we'll get to that. Super wild if you're into new words and new things. If you've heard of that, fantastic. If you haven't, I haven't till tonight. So I'll read you some of that as we go. But fire stuff, James, as always. What else you got, my man? Go right ahead.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that either. But this makes me think of, in relation to a movie being filmed there. There's a lot of movies I've heard of over the years that are sort of horror, paranormal related movies, where after the fact, or even sometimes during the production, people that film on locations in places that have that right atmosphere, that right appearance for a movie like that, they will claim to have activity around them and around the set, around the whole movie production in general. There are more extreme versions of that. And of course, this is all things that have been claimed. I don't know how much is accurate, but just regarding famous movies like, I believe it was the first Poltergeist movie, also I believe Amityville, there's different movies where as they were making the movie and or after, anomalous things appeared to happen with the cast and crew in those productions. And these are things that go on in some cases for years, supposedly. So this is really fascinating. This is sort of another example of this, but it's in a more public place. Although I do remember hearing that cemetery had to close down at night to keep people from going in there because it just got so crazy at one point.
Yeah, the mob was literally trying to break into this cemetery and put stakes in the hearts of vampires. And the website is there, by the way, if you want to check it out. Where is it? Right there. It's highgatecemetery.org. I was looking at this. It's super cool. And their hours are 10 p.m. to 5 p.m. until November. So if you live in northern, what is it? The UK, northern, some or other, what's the town? What's the city? I don't know, whatever. I'm not from there, so you'll forgive me on that. I don't know my geography of the place, but I guess Karl Marx is buried there for what I'm reading. And, it gets a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people coming through there, not just for the vampire story, of course, but that's part of the folklore of this place. But it is one of those things that's been around for several hundred years now. And these places are, as we described, liminal places. And not just, let's say, whether you believe in the paranormal or not, let's say liminal places in our mind's eye of storytelling. Because even if, let's say, you just scrubbed the entirety of this vampire story from this place, still, the fog comes out in a particular time of year and these places just appear spooky. And so it kind of brings that resonant energy that I'm talking about, that I'm always talking about, out of this story space of, well, this is really creepy. What do you think is in there? This type of stuff. So I don't know. Wild stuff. What else you got?
Yeah, I mean, even if you take out all the paranormal things that supposedly happen in places, you still have everything that happens because of them. You have tours, you have paranormal investigation events. Again, not even if you don't believe in anything paranormal, that's fine. You still have groups who hear about these places that want to go and check them out and hold events in famous places. This is I'm pretty sure this is on a national, probably international scale. I've been on a couple of events with a local team of paranormal investigators at different properties around my state where I live, around my part of my state where I live. And what they would do is it would be an event where you paid for tickets to get in and to go on the event. But all the money went to the historical preservation and restoration of a site. And to me, that's amazing. But again, so even without any of that, let's say it's not real, there's still the interest in it that is real. And people going to these places that are physically here and possibly or not, but seem like they have experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And when you put a bunch of attention into that, the space, right? In this case specifically, it's a geographical space. It's a graveyard. It's a place you can go. All right. But this is the movie they filmed, Taste the Blood of Dracula, starring Christopher Lee as Count Dracula, features Van Helsing, the Van Helsing family, of course, vampire hunters, the whole bit, right? All the stuff you would expect from this. And then they wrap filming, they leave. And then suddenly over the next 6 months, it's sort of cooking these ideas into that public consciousness. and they start seeing stuff. And so, you know, it makes you wonder, because even before this film was there, like I was describing, this was a spooky place. And you got to bet your bippy that there were, you know, maybe tales of vampires long before they decided to film this movie there. So again, which is it? Art imitating life, or life imitating art? Or is it as circular and cyclical? And there's not a damn thing we can do about it, because we try and fill that gap. We try and fill that space. It's a weird thing to consider, but we do this to ourselves as humans. And how big does it get? And what does it mean? What else you got? About a couple minutes left. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I do think that is a cycle. It does seem to be a cycle. And I think as time goes on, these cycles, the words that we use to describe things may change. There's some argument that modern alien encounters in some cases may be fae or fairy entities instead, but taking on a new appearance because that's what people think is happening. So even with just that one example, there's that. But again, yeah, the cemeteries to begin with, like you said, you know, they can give off an eerie feeling, or they can give off a peaceful feeling. It's really weird the way I don't think all cemeteries have the same feeling, or graveyards have the same feeling. And so what is it about some versus others that do have those feelings? Is that the collective just emotion of people going to a place and maybe a handful of people having that feeling and it stays and then gets added to over time? Or is it paranormal? And I don't know.
Yeah, and paranormal, once again, doesn't have to be the traditional definition. Like we talk about this a lot on this show, is that some of these definitions are placeholders because we don't know what it means. It's sort of at the edge of science and, as they say, pseudoscience, and even, you know, outright fabrication and whatnot. Like in this case with these two occultists sort of jamming with the mainstream public purview of, we're the ones who found this vampire, we're going to do something about it. So, I mean, there are frauds in this industry. That's a fact. But also that does not erase the fact that there might also be some of this other stuff that eludes us defining it for the time being. And so these umbrella terms like the paranormal are things we don't understand yet. So once again, it doesn't matter what you believe. That's you know, irrelevant to these conversations, because if you can see the world in at least two different ways from two different perspectives, then you're good to go. And that's the whole point of this. James, you're the best. You're welcome to sit in. I know there's a ton here to get to, and lots more in this story. That's the wild part. Thanks for being part of this. Anything to add real quick? As you know, we're just about out of time.
No, yeah, happy to sit in because I'm curious to revisit the story again and hear more about it and comment on it as time allows.
You got it. Appreciate it very much. You know, I'm loving that is James Salcido, is salcidoparanormal.com, SALSIDO paranormal.com, the paranormal expert of troubled minds, a dear friend, and the glue of the show, as you guys know if you've been listening for any amount of time. Tonight we're talking the Highgate Vampire, the monster that wrote itself. What the hell does that mean? Well, we'll get to what that means because it's complicated. And it is this circular aspect of telling a story and then filling reality with said story. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. More on the way. That's funny. Two buttons at once. My goodness. This one right here.
You're tuning into Troubled Minds, the show where mystery knows no bounds. Stay tuned for revelations that'll keep you questioning the fabric of reality.
The Highgate Vampire, the monster that wrote itself, ink ran red in the margin, crawled down off the shelf. I turned each page and the page turned me as well. Highgate Vampire, author of its own hell. Found your book in a damp thrift box off Archway. Mildewed spine still humming with the heat. Each word fed on the stories folks had half said, kept their dread pressed like flowers between sheets. The Highgate Vampire, the monster that wrote itself, ink ran red in the margin, crawled down off the shelf. I turned each page and the page turned me as well. Highgate Vampire, author of its own hell.
Kind of like that one. Little Johnny Cash-esque. What's up? Hope everybody's well tonight. Yeah. The Highgate Vampire. What's up, Herschel? Eric, I see there. What's up, APOC, Joe in Florida? La Roberts. We got Daryl in New York. What's up, Jib Chisla, Chef Pete, Molly, and Jorge? I see you guys. Have you ever heard of this? The Highgate Vampire. And what about life imitating art and vice versa? And why do we do this to ourselves? What's up, Mr. Duffy, Roving Fungus? I see you in the chat there. Unseen Steve McQueen. How are you, Viking Lloyd? Thanks for all the great chat. Thanks for being cool and chill. Ioxy, what's going on? Hello. Over to Rumble. What is up, fam? We got Hikers here. What's up, Merlin? I caught some of that over there with Ricky and James. Very good stuff. What's up, Gordo? The Puff sighting has officially been called out. What's going on? Hope you guys are doing great tonight. Just talking wild stuff. That's what we do. Here we go. Trouble Wine's coming up. What do you know about this? And what about the egregore of the mind's eye and human resonant energy? Here we go. Right about now. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting, and of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, in 1968, Hammer Studios filmed a Dracula movie at Highgate Cemetery. Within a year, people started seeing a real vampire. Then foxes started turning up drained of blood. Then two rival occultists went to war for 50 years over who owned the story. Then someone staked a 100-year-old corpse on Lammas Day. The whole tale is far stranger than you can imagine, and of course leads to a ton of, let's say, uncomfortable questions when it comes to this stuff. Because, like I said, regardless of belief, regardless of what the universe actually does with resonant energy in the larger context, we're seeing this stuff play out not just, let's say, in ancient history, in mythology and folklore. We're seeing some of this stuff happen. This was 1968, 69, 1970. 1970 is when they released this movie, Taste the Blood of Dracula, with none other than Christopher Lee, rest in peace. Great actor for a very long time. He was in Star Wars, and he was Saruman in Lord of the Rings most recently, which, you know, the younger generation would know him for, but he's been in a ton of movies forever. He's been great forever. And so this is a weird thing because, I don't know, you bring this into a cemetery in a particular space, and then suddenly people start seeing some stuff. And then here's what I didn't tell you, which the entire circular arc of this is that all of that madness goes down. These two occultists basically have a battle in the public eye for who owns this story and who had really more to do with it than the other guy or whatever, and a sort of revisionist history at a duel. But then a couple years later, because based on the sort of mass hysteria event of the seeing the vampires and the occult stuff and the weirdness, the spooks and goblins or whatever of this space, they made another movie based on that event called Dracula AD 1972. So suddenly, once again, the entire arc of this, which I think it's important to kind of front load so you understand where my mind is at. This is about vampires, yes, but also this is about that human resonant energy where life does imitate art and vice versa. And so we have a very clear depiction of this in this space with this, what's it called? The Highgate Vampire. Now, weird, right? And I think there's probably, if we're giving it enough space in conceptual thought, where this type of stuff happens. Is it built into the land? Is it cooked into maybe spiritual energy? Think of a place like Gettysburg, stained with the blood of just horrific battle. And people still go there today and suggest they see these spirits of Union and Confederate soldiers that died in this just massive, grotesque battle that is still scarred with resonant psychic energy to this day. I don't know. It's weird. All this stuff is weird to me. And what do you think is going on with it? And once again, have you ever heard of the Highgate Vampire? What do you think of vampires themselves? What about this idea that life not only imitates art, but art imitates life in a cycle? And what do you expect to happen in the next, I don't know, given all these wild ideas we're tossing out there, with the next egregore cycle? What are we going to fill in the actual space from the art space? I don't know. I think it's very complicated, but I think it's very fascinating. And who knows what comes next? That's the whole point. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. If you want to be part of the conversation, give us a call. The number to call is 702-857-6939. I'll drop that in the chat. Everything should be working. I did a pretty robust test before we started the show, but, gremlins do appear. Seems like Discord is good. If you want to be part of the conversation on Discord, troubledminds.org, click the Discord link and hop on in here. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Okay, so we're going to get into more of this story. I think it's important to fill out many of the details. Like I said, if you want all the details to just read straight through, go check out the Troubled Minds newsletter, troubledminds.org. Click on the newsletter on top. It'll take you straight over here and you can see exactly what was written up about this. James, anything to add to what I said or any thoughts that came to your mind? Otherwise, I'm going to jump into this write-up and dig into more of these details because it's absolutely wild.
Yeah, no, just a couple of thoughts I'm wondering about here, and maybe they'll be answered or just in the write-up there, because I'm going to definitely check that out tonight after the show, too. But I'm just wondering, with the sightings of something in the cemetery after that movie was done, I'm wondering, was it ever explained away as, let's say, a promotional stunt or a way to get sales up for the movie in anticipation for it, or was it something just anomalous, or even just someone walking through the cemetery after the movie was done and had never done it before, and then why were they there doing that? So all kinds of questions there to me when it comes to these events. So I'm looking forward to what you share from this as well.
Yeah. Okay. So wild stuff. And I agree 100%. No, my neck is just fine, but the webcam is a little tilted. Anyway. Okay. So check this out. So all this begins with Hammer Studios filming that Dracula movie in London's overgrown Highgate Cemetery in 1968. All right. To fill in the gaps on what's going on here. Then the eerie sightings around the cemetery begin soon after, building on scattered reports dating all the way back to 1963. So this stuff was actually happening before they were filming this movie around this cemetery. Okay. So once again, which came first, the art or the life and in the cycle? But here's the thing. This is where it starts to get weird. In 1969, occultist David Farrant, Farrant, reported seeing a tall figure with hypnotic eyes and triggered a flood of varied ghost reports in the local press. People started seeing all kinds of wild stuff. Self-styled bishop and vampire hunter Sean Manchester, who's the other occultist here. So we have David Farrant and Sean Manchester. So Sean Manchester then reframed the phenomenon as a literal king vampire from Wallachia, supplying a Dracula-like backstory that the media eagerly amplified. And that becomes the thing, right? The second you say the word, you point out what this is, suddenly it coalesces in our mind's eye in the media space. People write about it, people think about it, and then there's now no doubt what the specter is that goes bump in the night. It's what has been named. It's what has been called. And we start to recognize those things as what they are, or what somebody else tells us they are. And that's where this gets weird, because these two people, once again, Sean Manchester and the other guy, Ferrant. I got most of their last names locked in, but their first names elude me. Anyway, it's in the write-up. It's all in the write-up. These guys were going at it in terms of, well, I started the story. No, I started the story. So it became this massive ego fest of these dudes trying to get into not just grow an audience, right? You see a lot of this stuff on social media today where people are just fighting over some of the dumbest things you've ever seen in your life. But I was first. No, I was first. Look, I don't care. I just don't care. Like, me personally, I mean, people love the drama and it sells for sure. But this King Vampire, okay, from Wallachia, this guy, Sean Manchester, said that it was brought in and buried in this particular cemetery. And he proved he had, or said he had proof that it came from somewhere, of course, in Eastern Europe and yada, yada, blah, blah. But it turns out that that was something he made up, and he even admitted that later in a book he wrote about it as an embellishment, as maybe it wasn't a corpse from Wallachia or whatever. It's like, come on now. Anyway, so this gets weird. So alongside the publicity, disturbing physical events occurred because it wasn't just the space of people saying we saw stuff and writing letters to the local newspaper and the newspaper now writing articles. It wasn't that. It was that, but then these other weird things started happening. For instance, foxes were reportedly found drained of blood with throat wounds. And on August 1st, 1970, the decapitated, staked, partially burned remains of a century-old corpse were discovered near a catacomb, seemingly mimicking traditional anti-vampire rituals. So they started seeing this stuff actually happen right there in front of everybody. And it's on everybody's mind. It's being written about in the local newspaper. And this particular space is like, wait a minute now. Like it's like we are now living this movie they just filmed in this place. And people are actually out there with stakes trying to break into this graveyard and bag themselves a vampire. Like, what in the hell is going on with this? Now, look, and here's the beautiful part about all of it. And I mean that in the nicest way. Okay. Because when you talk about mass hysteria, this is a little bit fractured because the mass hysteria aspect would be one person sees something, they say they saw a vampire, then everybody sees a vampire, which kind of came into place once Manchester, the other occultist, fingered the entity. Yeah, like said that it's a vampire, right? I know what it is, and everybody did. But before that, everybody saw a bunch of different stuff. So what level of mass hysteria kind of fits into this? And what do you know about mass hysteria and group dynamics? And, one person says something and everybody starts to see it. This is where this gets incredibly weird. So we'll get back to these two occultists, because like I said, this culminates in a duel. They want to have a magician's duel on a Friday the 13th. And they schedule this. Okay. And I'll tell you about what happened during that magician's duel coming up. But this is wild. This entire story is just all over the place. And it doesn't really necessarily fit the mold of mass hysteria. For instance, we've talked about this in the past, and we talked about it right when it happened, but the drone sightings in Colorado, what was this, like 3 years ago? This is right at the end of COVID, because it's kind of winding down a little bit. And they had these drones that people were seeing and saying these were massive drones, like Reaper sized drones just floating out there in Colorado. And they called the cops, and everybody was seeing these things. And the cops came out and supposedly were seeing them too. But then, a couple months later, they just wrote it off as an episode of mass hysteria, right? But it doesn't fit the mold. Once again, it doesn't fit the mold because people are reporting these things, the cops are seeing them, and then suddenly they're like, well, there's mass hysteria, there's nothing to see here. Okay. It's funny how this stuff can get weaponized and they can use it against us. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. There's like a fractal of this or a fractured narrative where it didn't start with everybody seeing, the ghost with chains, the trope. They saw all kinds of stuff. It was like a menagerie of the paranormal. But then once it was pointed to as this vampire, everybody started seeing the vampire. So you see what happens. You get it in the mind's eye, you name it, you stoke the interest in it in terms of the media and this feud between these two budding occultists looking for an audience. And then suddenly everybody's casting spells and doing rituals and trying to hunt these vampires. But you get what I mean. So we'll get back to the rest of this and how this kind of culminates into just a massive amount of high strangeness. But the thing that gets me the most about this, as I've been saying, is that egregore aspect. The idea that this is cooked into this place. Not just then, not just now, but prior to that. And so the art came, they made a movie, the hysteria. They made another movie. And then now, how many years later, we're talking about it. But it's one of those pieces of history that really kind of gets sidelined, as I said. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Anything on any of that, James? Again, if you guys want to be part of the conversation, 702-857-6939. Now would be the time to call. James, anything on any of that? There's a ton here, which I'll continue to get to. It's a wild and fascinating story, so I'm glad I got a little time to kind of dig into it. What you got, if anything, sir?
Yeah, now, I'm not sure if this is in the write-up or not, but I could have swore, unless I'm thinking of a different cemetery, there was also a black dog sighting there, too. As like a hellhound kind of a thing seen at that cemetery.
That wouldn't surprise me. Like was it Black Shuck or Old Shuck, I think is what it was called? Something like that,
yeah,
right?
Black Shuck, yeah. Yeah. I feel like there was sightings of that in there, too. Not necessarily at the same time, maybe, as this whole thing, maybe before. But, yeah, and, you know, what I always wonder, too, with this whole egregore thing, and if there are consciousness out there that are being shaped by everyone's thoughts and feelings and all of that, is that why some of them appear to be so sad or so angry? Are in some cases are maybe what are perceived to be more negative beings or entities or consciousness, are they that way because that's what people think they are? And so they're that way, but they're also that way because why are you all doing this to me?
Yeah, exactly. And this goes back generations, and this will go on generations further, because how do you break those cycles? I mean, there are cycles that can be named. There are, trauma cycles of that type of stuff. That's obvious and true. But then this stuff is sort of the metaphysical trauma of the land itself and the larger story. Like, how do you break those cycles? I couldn't even begin to guess. I mean, do you get the sage and the holy water on this on this actual graveyard? I mean, that part becomes weird, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's even then, I do think stories come and go. So, and even if maybe not the exact same story, they can change over time. So who's to say that it's just not? It just isn't at a low point right now. And then, something else happens years from now and it's out there again, and this is for any location, becomes more popular again. And people may not even know about the previous versions of the story, or they might, and they'll connect it. It's really fascinating how all this works and how time works with it and these cycles and I guess if you are in an area long enough, you'll get to, and you research an area long enough, you'll get to experience those cycles. But if you're not, then you may just hear about the one set of experiences at a location.
Yeah, and they will continue to change and morph with the times, and that becomes, like I said, probably the most fascinating part of this is because we do tell these stories, we repeat them, but they do change. And look at some of the, we've done the hauntings of sort of the modern entities of, the internet Zozo or Slender Man. There was a Wikipasta that isn't really an entity that was known and named in antiquity, but they sort of took those archetypes and built them into these new ideas, which then started haunting people in the larger context. So it's again, this is all wild to me, like I said, and it is like you point to the mind's eye as the progenitor space of these ideas, because they are brought to us by, maybe campfire tales or kids whispering on the playground type stuff. But then suddenly we find a way to mythologize these things and even make them real. It's incredible. All this stuff, like I said, is that's the most fascinating part of this. But look, I do love vampire stories, and I do love the idea that maybe the energy of making this film back in 1968 brought energy of the vampire. I mean, like, how weird does it get? And yeah, wild stuff. What else you got, my friend? If not, I got tons of stuff to get here too.
Well, and I think there is the traditional idea of a vampire that takes blood or whatever, but there's also just the whole vampiric trait of taking from others, or parasitic trait, taking from others. It goes into a lot more than just sort of an idea of a traditional vampire. I mean, we've all probably heard the term of energy vampires, all these things. So in one way or another, the whole idea of a vampire has been around for a very long time.
Exactly right. In different way. Once again, the energy vampire was not a thing of the old space, at least in that term, but it is something that people talk about now, and it's very real. It's all very real, at least in terms of those people that just continue to take. And it doesn't even have to be anything physical. It's just that they show up and the entire room goes, ugh, this guy's here. And they're drawing the energy. They're drawing the social energy. They're drawing sort of peering through our psychic defenses that we put up on a daily basis. Like, this is just, it's real. All this stuff is very real. What else you got? And if not, I'll get right back to the write-up here.
Yeah, no, looking forward to more of the write-up.
Good stuff. Appreciate it very much, James. Okay, look, check it out. So now, this is where it got, right? So we had the two occultists fighting, scheduled this actual occultist magicians duel on Friday the 13th, because what other day would you do it? But we'll get to that. That's not imminent right now. What is the foxes again showing up drained of blood? This 100-year-old corpse that actually had a stake through its heart and burned, right, as some level of actual vampire ritual as part of this. But this gets weird when chronologically that the escalation happened when the local press grabbed it and they aired a segment on TV. And I believe, again, from the write-ups I'm reading, that there's, differing examples because you can't trust everything you read on the internet. But what I'm reading as well is Friday the 13th comes into the space where they announced all this stuff. And they ran a segment on the local news, or at least on TV. And that's what caused sort of this mass hysteria event, or the mob, the riot that ran down to the cemetery, people fashioning their own wooden stakes to go bag themselves a vampire. So straight from the thing here, and this is the this is the best part about AI. You can do the AI write up, and then you can just do the AI brief, and then just read from the brief, and not have to go through the entire thing as just sort of an outline here. But anyway, so so the situation escalated into a mass vampire hunt after a TV segment, forcing police to patrol the cemetery at night. Manchester, one of these occultists, later published a dramatic account of confronting the vampire, featuring a sleepwalking girl, Louisa, Luisa, whose story closely echoes Bram Stoker's Lucy Westenra, which folklorists interpret as ostension, people unconsciously acting out pre-existing stories, which is that, again, that ostension. Link is in the description down below. Read into this stuff. Like I said, so this is as close to me as naming these egregores we talk about, naming these story loops that are not just ancient stories that we tell again, but then we find ways to fulfill, whether we are that monstrous entity in the story or the hero, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. This is all, again, baked into us, as I like to say, and we just continue to do these things. And again, nothing screams louder in the control mechanism space that I'm always talking about than things like this, because it's almost as if we fill the gaps of these spaces with these ideas, because if we haven't had them recently or often enough, then we just become them. Super weird. Anyway, read up on ostension. It's incredible. Okay, so back here. So, and then, which caused all of this long petty feud between Manchester and Ferrand, these two budding occultists that were looking for all the glory for this particular story and the vampire and all the things that went along with it, right? And so dueling books, rival occult societies, media stunts, satirical attacks, like all kinds of stuff that you're like, okay, you would expect from, like an internet slap fight, like a Twitter thing where people, individuals kept going back to this graveyard night after night and chronicling things, making notes of whatever, trying ritual stuff, trying to draw out this vampire so they could be the ones to actually kill the thing. All right. Now, real or not, these people are going out there every night and now becoming really kind of a menace to society. They're disturbing the peace, right? They're up there kind of making a racket. They're drawing attention to themselves at night in a cemetery in 1970. Okay. Seems very weird. But then it culminates in this, like I said, they challenge each other to this duel. This actual duel on Friday the 13th, this occultist magician wizard duel, which is, well, like I said, fascinating in and of itself that it lines into that space. But I'm not going to tell you exactly what that is. I'm going to make you wait till after the break. Unless you read the write-up, you'll know. But it is a long petty feud between these two, Manchester and Ferrand. And let's see. Okay, so, but that's the whole point. The whole point of this is that you have these dueling interests that want the attention of this vampire space. Now, was this vampire real? You know, I think it's easy to say no. But also, once again, the vampire goes back hundreds, dare I suggest thousands of years. And so maybe, just maybe, there's something to this in terms of interest, awakening, an archetype in our mind that we think we see, that maybe isn't there physically, but is maybe there in terms of its ancestral space. Again, human resonant energy. And that's what I'm always talking about on this show, because I think it's fascinating that it's not just necessarily the paranormal space, but it is the storytelling space. It's a space of our mind's eye, whispers in the dark, tales from grandma, and all the folklore and mythology in between. And I love it. I love all of it. I'm not putting any of it down. I think it's incredible. And that's why I'm here. It's what brings me back night after night. But you get the idea. This can turn out of hand. This can just spin off the rails at any moment and become mass hysteria. So a lot of questions in play right now. Do you believe this is an egregore lying in wait for the next attention space of a movie being made, or a podcast, a conversation? Do you think there's any validity to a vampire itself? Maybe not just a psychic vampire in modern parlance, but the vampire entity physically, or even back to that storytelling aspect. Maybe we just make up ideas as placeholder events, as placeholder definitions. I don't know. I think there's a lot here, a lot to talk about, a lot to think about, and that's the point. Love to hear your thoughts. If you want to be part of the conversation tonight, 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. And we'll get to the Wizard's Duel. The Wizard's Duel, the Magician's Duel on Friday the 13th sounds like the hottest thing ever, and it might be. You're going to have to stay tuned. Got about 30 seconds left if you've got anything to add, James, and we'll take a quick break.
Well, just considering here, even if it wasn't a vampire, any kind of sort of anomalous apparition, whatever it may have been, if there was this focus on vampires at the time, it could have been an easy jump from one person's mind to another that, oh, this must be a vampire because there's all this talk about this right now. And we've heard about this, so it must be what it is. So whatever it was, it seems like it was possibly destined to become something else.
And what is that something else? We'll get to that because I think it's important to this story. You're the best, James. Hang tight. We'll get back to you momentarily. Love to hear your thoughts. We're talking, this is the Highgate Vampire. This is a true story. The monster that wrote itself. Is that even possible? 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link. Love to hear your thoughts. What about an egregore of an ancient idea? And why can't we get rid of it? Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. Do not go anywhere. See you in just one moment.
This is Troubled Minds. Your host, Michael Strange, the master of the mysterious, is here to guide you through the shadows of the unexplained.
Let's check the news. A parasitic organism may be quietly reshaping the minds of its hosts, including, potentially, our own. Research published in 2016 revealed that a single-celled parasite commonly associated with cats can manipulate chimpanzees into becoming fatally attracted to the scent of leopards, their natural predators. Critically, this attraction did not extend to lions or tigers, neither of which hunt chimps, suggesting the behavioral change is precisely targeted rather than a general side effect. A lead researcher from a French ecological science institute believes the parasite may have developed this same manipulation in our human ancestors, and that the documented attraction some infected people show toward domestic cat urine could be an ancient evolutionary echo, a remnant of a time when big cats hunted us. Turning now to something closer to home, specifically, what you do in the final 30 minutes before sleep. Neuroscience research is drawing a sharp line between those who read before bed and those who reach for a screen. A study led by neuroscientist Gregory Burns at Emory University found that participants reading a novel each evening showed measurable increases in brain connectivity, particularly in regions tied to language processing and sensory simulation. More striking, those changes persisted into the following morning, even when subjects weren't reading. Burns described the phenomenon as shadow activity, likening it to a form of mental muscle memory still firing long after the book was closed. Separate research published in a leading brain mapping journal found that screen-based viewing before sleep produced meaningfully different, and less constructive, neurological outcomes, raising quiet questions about the long-term cognitive costs of how we choose to end each day. Thanks for listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network.
Indeed. Catch that toxoplasmosis again, except it's now chimpanzees and leopards. What the hell? I wonder, and I'll put this in my back pocket for another time. Is there sort of a spiritual sickness of toxoplasmosis that leads us into graveyards at night looking for vampires? Our natural predator. What's up? Hope everybody's well tonight. I see you in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. Is that Ricky? What's up? Hold on. Let me check. What's up? What's up? Thanks, Ricky. Great job over there with James and Merlin. I saw part of that show. There was somebody else there. I'm not sure who it was. I'm sorry about that. I just dipped in for a second because I was prepping the show. Recycle Bin Laden. That's who that is over there on Rumble. On Discord. Recycle. We got the Robert. What's up, Daryl? How you doing? Chef Pete, Joe in Florida, APOC. We got Eric at the Night Stalker. Eric and Derek, the Night Stalker, Matt, Sal, Herschel, and James. You guys are the best. What's up, Parker? I see you. Mr. Duffy. What's up, Ioxy? Viking. How you doing? Matt, Sal. I hope everybody's well tonight. If I missed anybody, just say hi in the chat. I will say hi back. Doing my best to keep up with everybody. Cubs Future, how you doing? Merlin again, how you doing? Puff. Gordo said, great show so far tonight, Mike. I appreciate it. Very nice. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being locked in. Like I said, this is when I found it, I was like, damn, this is wild. This has all the makings of a great Troubled Minds conversation. Who'd I miss? Hiker, I see you there. What's up, Gordo? Cubs. Good evening, guys. Good evening. Thanks for being nice to each other. Gordo says, awesome show so far. Wow. Thank you. Appreciate that. And hey, this is just me kind of looking at history and looking at it a little bit of a different way. Who'd I miss? If I missed anybody over there, we got anybody on Kick? We should be streaming on Kick. Is that working? Let me refresh that. Yeah, it's working. Okay. Hey, shout out Kick. Nobody over there because they don't know we're over there. Who did I miss? Anyway, you guys get the idea. There's a ton of stuff happening here, and I don't know how to quantify it other than once again this idea of ostension, this folklore bit where we sort of fill the holes of these ideas, and it's weird. It's weird. So here we go. Troubled Minds coming up in just a second. Love to hear your thoughts. Again, open phone lines. Everybody, if you got a take on this, whether it's short or long, we're here for you. And that's the whole point of this, is to talk to regular people about extraordinary ideas, or extraordinary people about regular ideas. You see what I did there? Because of course, to us, the idea of an egregore has become an ordinary idea. When you get weird enough, everything's an ordinary idea. Anyway, here we go. Troubled Minds coming up. Let's go. More from James, your calls as well. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you heard of this? And what about the art imitating life aspect? Here we go. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. Do check out the website. Go listen. You can listen to it right now for free, and it's a mobile website too, so you can just press play and not have to worry about paying YouTube or whatever to Anyway, hey, look, it's free. It's free. Come hang out. Come listen on the radio station, and of course 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight we're taking your calls as we're talking about this Highgate Vampire, 1968, 1979. 1970, and this vampire aspect of old tales of this graveyard, the Highgate Cemetery, and then a vampire movie being made with Christopher Lee, and then right after that in this particular space, basically mass hysteria. It all hits the fan. Everybody's seeing all kinds of stuff, and it gets coalesced into the idea of a vampire from some random occultist. It's like, oh hey, like, I need a following to read my manuscripts or whatever. And suddenly there's this dueling aspect of these two occultists where they want credit for this. And one guy's more, there's something going on here that's a little more spooky than vampires because everybody's seeing tons of things. But then the other guy's like, no, it's a vampire because, well, the vampire movie had just filmed, and the vampire movie was called, again, Taste the Blood of Dracula. After this crazy event went down, all of the mass hysteria, all of the weirdness and whatnot, they made another movie based on this, the hysteria that came from the movie, called Dracula AD 1972. I haven't seen either one of these. I ran into this kind of later in the afternoon today, so I wasn't able to, as I should really do, the deeper research and go watch these movies. I could give you a little more insight. But this is still strange enough at face value, looking at just a timeline of events to go, what the hell's happening with this? And again, how weird does it get? So hang tight. We will get to the magician's duel, because I'm telling you, the way that ends is going to leave you shattered, absolutely shattered. James, anything on this or anything came to mind? If not, we'll get right back to the write-up and talk about some of the other weird stuff regarding this particular tale.
Yeah, it's fascinating that there were sightings of all kinds of things. And then again, that focus on that one thing won out over everything else. And it does make me wonder, because, I mean, I have to be honest, out of everything that I've found over the years here, with everything I do, with my own research and everything, I found a lot of accounts of anomalous experiences. I can't really say I've ever found any about vampires. So it's fascinating that this is still an idea that, I mean, obviously still today it is an idea that is out there, and about these beings as they are. The other thing I was thinking of too is, you were mentioning physical versus non-physical, or there versus not there. Depending on what sources you look into, vampires could do that anyway, become mist or a cloud or just dust, and move around in that form anyway. So, again, you have something that, whether it's fiction or whatever there is to it, it could go between those two states where it's there, but it's also not there.
Yeah, the old vampire lore, being a dungeon master and D&D aficionado, as they say, the gaseous form. Vampires can also turn into a bat. They're also, of course, damaged by sunlight. Okay, silver does double damage, or plus. It depends on the actual edition. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that fits into folklore, into gaming, and into these larger ideas. And once again, this is from the ancient ways. This is not something that was concocted in 1975 with Gary Gygax. This was something that was cooked up in these stories, these circular cycles of stories we've been talking about. So I don't know, man, like this is all massively amazing to me. And these are the types of things I'm going to start looking into more of these little, kind of weird tidbits historically that people don't talk about or know enough about. Because I was not born during any of this. So I was a little bit shocked to be reading this and be like, damn, this is so troubled minds. I can't believe it. And vampires and all the rest. But anyway, love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. That's the whole point of this. If you want to be part of the conversation, give us a call, 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link. Anything else, James? If not, I'll get to the magician's duel, which I said is going to leave you shattered about what actually happened.
Oh wow, that's quite the claim there. Shattered, huh? No, I'm kidding. But no, looking forward to the rest.
All right. Okay, so we'll get to that. So now these two occultists, okay, dueling in the public, wanting all the attention for this particular entity, the Highgate Vampire. Okay, one says it's not really a vampire. The other one calls it a vampire. Suddenly, everybody sees vampires now. Everybody's got this interest in this particular graveyard. They're going there to kill themselves a vampire, all right, because everybody believes it's there. And don't forget, this is not, 1530. This is 1970, okay? 1970, yes, that 1970. The 20th century, 1970, right? Okay, which means this stuff should have been relegated to folklore and left way behind us a long time ago. And yet, people are trying to break into this graveyard with homemade, home-fashioned wooden stakes to go bag this vampire because they believe it's there. Weird, right? Okay. Now, these two occultists, like I said, they both wrote books regarding this incident, all right, which was the weird part to me, because one was just called, I think, the Highgate Vampire, and one was called Beyond the Highgate Vampire, something like that, right? Like, no, read my book. No, read my book. And it was basically a tale of their perspective and how they influenced the events of the Highgate Vampire itself. Like I said, an internet Twitter slap fight in 1970, okay? Just kind of carried on into the space, which, by the way, this actual contention between these two people lasted 50 years. Like one of these guys finally passed away in 2019, but they were still going at each other ever since, all the way back to 1970. Right? Hey, some things, some ideas die hard, right? You can't just let it go. Okay. Anyway. All right. So now getting to that point, let me see if there's anything additional I should add before we get to the actual Wizards duel, the actual occultist Wizards duel scheduled on Friday the 13th. Telling you, going to leave you shattered. Here's what happens. Okay. All right. So it's Sean Manchester and this other guy, David Farrand, we're talking about, the Highgate Vampire. They're both claiming responsibility for at least recognizing what happened and then being able to frame it as they get the credit. Fine, cool, whatever. If it was me and I was in the space, I'd be like, hey, my friend, this guy's my friend, and let's talk about it together, because I think we're going to have aspects maybe we recognize or don't recognize as part of it. And maybe we can teach each other something. You know what I mean? Collaboration always has a way of just making us stronger, making us more rich in our ideas and how we're able to accept things that not necessarily we don't understand directly, but ideas that maybe, just maybe, are, how would you call it, are difficult to digest, right? Because, like I said, those reality tunnels we always talk about are an identity. It's very important, but then also those reality anchors keep us from recognizing things that are sort of outside of that purview. So anyway, okay, so that's where it leads us. And now the Wizards duel. They were beefing each other in the media. They were writing their books. This is when this was going on. This was hot and heavy in around 1970, 1971, somewhere in that space. And so they schedule a face-off. They're there in this graveyard. They're doing rituals. They're doing all kinds of stuff, sort of not together, separately. They're looking for the vampires. They're trying to find the occult connections. They're doing all the things, right? They're trying to make as much noise as possible because, of course, their book is coming. And they want people to buy their books, right? It's like old school marketing. Think about how hard you had to work back in the day just to market your damn book, right? You had to go to a graveyard every night and light candles and bring a vampire hunting kit. Anyway, you get the idea. So they do. They all this beef culminates in this. Okay, you know what? We're gonna settle this once and for all. We're gonna have a Wizards duel on Friday the 13th at high noon or whenever the time was, and they scheduled it. And I'm not sure there was a massive anticipation for that event. I mean, it was in my mind when I read that. I was like, "That's the hottest thing I've ever heard." It's like a showdown in Gunsmoke or like a Boot Hill, the Wild West, or whatever, right? Like, hey, I'll meet you at the watering hole at high noon, right? Except it's wizards, except it's occultists. Okay, so they do. All right, they schedule it. There's some interest, and guess what happens? Nobody shows up. Nobody shows up. Hey, I got a story about that, by the way. I showed up. Never mind. We're not going to get into that. Those, if you know, you know. Anyway, so here's the wild part about it, right? Is that they still, even after that, they're still beefing 50 years later, all the way to 2019 when one of these guys finally passes away. I haven't read these books, but like I said, the more I'm looking into these ideas, the more this literally just sits in the space of the egregore, in the space of these ancient ideas I'm always talking about that are not just based on stories. Yes, definitely, but also based in the land where these stories reside, almost as if there's a psychic scar or some level of energy that we can't shake. And so did I tell it right that the actual culmination of this and what happened in the Wizards duel would leave you shattered? I think I was right. It left me shattered. I wanted to know what happened. Such and such cast fireball. Let's do that instead. Love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm calling this, this is the Highgate Vampire, the monster that wrote itself. 702-857-6939. Anything on that, James? Did it leave you shattered?
I can't talk. I'm shattered. No, I'm kidding. But that is fascinating. And it just makes me wonder, so what happened? Were they both sort of worried that it wasn't going to work out their way? Did they? I don't know. It's really odd because why? What led them to not? So it wasn't just that nobody showed up; it was that they themselves didn't show up at all.
Yeah, they themselves didn't show up. So whatever interest was there was dashed because, it's like scheduling a big fight between two prize fighters and then nobody shows up. So, yeah, imagine the disappointment if you were interested in that.
So why? I mean, I guess you would still have even if nothing happened, you would still have the record of, oh, there was going to be this big event, so your names would still be out there. But yeah, I really wonder what happened to make them not go. So yeah, that's fascinating. It just and yet, like obviously, like you said, they were still arguing with each other for the next 50 years. So if they were willing to do that, but not to actually go there for a sort of a final confrontation over it, yeah, I don't know what to make of that for sure. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do. Neither one of them could cast Fireball. That's what happened.
There's that. Yeah, that seems the most likely. They're like, yeah, I'd love to go and do this, but I can't do any of this. And so it is fascinating that neither of them, because you would think even if like you go there, one person goes there and you have your rival or whatever, and you just hang out in the background, and then they don't show up. You can say, hey, I was there. I was ready. Still knowing you couldn't do anything.
Yeah, hey,
but
it's about it. As they say, right? They say 85% of success or something like that is just showing up and being on time. So imagine if you were the guy that showed up and the other guy didn't. You'd be like, because he knew I'd have smoked him with my Fireball. That's why he didn't show up.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's fascinating. So, but and I don't know. I'm just really curious what else everyone saw there, regardless of the vampire thing. I mean, was it apparitions? And I think I've heard all kinds of things about that. Like I said, black dog sightings, like monstrous black dog sightings, apparitions in that area. So all these sort of common paranormal things. And then, of course, for it to be labeled as just actually a vampire, to me is really fascinating. That it went from sort of things that are still reported today to something that is not reported much today from what I'm able to find.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. And there you go, guys. If you ever get challenged to a wizard's duel, just show up, and then you'll know that the other guy was too scared of your magic. There's some game theory strategy. Okay, so here's let's add some of this, right? So now consider the timing of all this. Once again, so this is a spooky cemetery in the United Kingdom, in Great Britain. All right. And clearly there's going to be some level of historical aspect to this because it's a spooky place. It is just what it is. Okay. These stories tend to gravitate and stick into these spooky places that are, how would you describe it? Trying to get the best way to describe this. Sometimes there's no best way in the moment. Into the archetypal space of the spooky graveyard, right? Like these stories certainly follow those places. Like you would expect a lich to show up in, for the D&D fans, sort of around an old graveyard, this type of thing, right? Outside of town in an old abandoned tower, that type of trope. Like these stories stick to the countrysides. Well, so consider the timing. Number one, we've got these old stories. We filmed this actual Christopher Lee starring as Count Dracula in The Taste of Blood of Dracula. Within months, genuine anomalous sightings begin. Within a year, a man appears on the scene claiming that a literal Dracula-style vampire from Romania, Wallachia, is buried in the grounds. The narrative slots into the available template with a precision that should make anyone paying attention uncomfortable, regardless of which side of the belief spectrum they occupy. And that's why I talk about that belief spectrum on the show, is because I think it's important how you frame this, at least with your mind's eye, your own personal aspect. Because once again, the materialist laughs. And the religious fundamentalist says, well, hold on, there's maybe something to this. These spirits of old, maybe a vampire isn't physically real, but maybe the idea of an energy siphoning entity that we cannot quantify, maybe that's very real. And look, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm saying it's fascinating to kind of look at the dichotomy. And by the way, too, regarding that, I'm building these tools. I'm telling you guys, like, look, let's take the AI challenge and use these things as tools and become smarter and become faster at what we do, become better at what we do. And arguably, I think I am. I think I am becoming this, but without losing ourselves. Okay. I think that's going to be the challenge in all of this, because suddenly you think you're smarter than everybody, and then you get AI psychosis, and then, et cetera, so on. There's going to be a challenge coming. Our egos is in the way a lot. Our ego singular, okay, or collectively. But anyway, and the reason I bring that up is because for this particular thing, I built this tool, and it's called which is a good time to introduce this, the debate arena. I'm going to read you some of this because this is highly fascinating, okay? So I took 4 entities, and you put in an idea, and they debate it from different aspects, all right? And I've got the empiricist, the skeptic, as one entity, one archetype. I've got the mythologist, a Jungian symbolic entity, as another. And I've got the liminal pragmatist, a threshold thinker, that all sort of argue regarding the space or the idea that you put in, okay? And then you have a moderator, which in this case is Socrates, which the only thing he knows is that he knows nothing. I love me some Socrates. Let me read you this. And it'll put us right to the bottom of the hour. Derek's got his hand up. He says he's ready to go at the bottom of the hour. Check it out. So as we're talking about tonight, the briefing is this. The Highgate Vampire refers to a series of alleged supernatural encounters reported in and around Highgate Cemetery in North London beginning in the late 1960s. Yada, yada. We've been talking about it all night. I'm not going to read you that top blurb. But I will read you what these 4 entities talk about specifically. Now look how wild this gets. Like I said, this is incredible. 1, what we have here, this is the skeptic, is a textbook case of social contagion amplified by media feedback loops. A few people report seeing something unusual at night in a Victorian cemetery, a genuinely atmospheric location that primes expectation of strangeness. Then 2 self-promoting occultists compete publicly for attention. Grave desecration follows, and the story feeds itself. The parsimonious explanation involves apophenia, suggestibility, poor lighting, and motivated reasoning for men who need an audience. No physical evidence of any vampire was ever produced. The briefing itself calls this a cultural moment, which is exactly right, and nothing more than that. All right. The mythologist says this. The vampire does not need to exist to be real. It rises precisely when a culture needs it. Post-war Britain, its empire dissolved, its certainties crumbling, reaches instinctively for the ancient predator who drains vitality from the living. Highgate's Victorian dead represent the very era whose confidence had finally collapsed. 2 rival priests appear to perform the exorcism. And notice that. The psyche always sends 2, because the shadow cannot be addressed without conflict over who owns the ritual. The entity was summoned collectively before anyone claimed to see it. And then the liminal pragmatist says this. Both of you are probably right. And that might be the least interesting conclusion we can reach. Here's what I keep returning to. Highgate Cemetery is genuinely a strange attractor. Dense with symbols, neglected liminal by design. Places like that do something measurable to human perception and group behavior. And we do not have good frameworks for that yet. Isn't that what we've been saying? The unknown here is not the vampire. It is why certain locations reliably generate coherent, transgenerational strangeness across cultures. The folklore and the social contagion are both outputs of something upstream we have not named. How smart is this thing? Okay. And Socrates says this as the actual entity that is moderating the debate. Let me press on something each of you has quietly assumed. The skeptic says the cemetery primed expectation. The mythologist says the culture summoned the entity before anyone saw it. The pragmatist says the location is the upstream cause. But notice, all 3 of you have made the witnesses disappear entirely. Who were they, actually? What did they see? We have leapt directly to explanation before establishing the phenomenon being explained. And here's what troubles me about Manchester and Ferrand, the 2 occultists. The mythologist says 2 rivals must appear. The skeptic says they needed an audience. But is a man with an audience therefore wrong about what he saw, or merely so for wanting one? There you go. And I think this is interesting because, like I said, you can throw a thing in and have these reality tunnels. spit back at you in real time and program them however you want. Wild stuff. Like this is, look, I have no answers. The whole point of this is to talk about these ideas in this manner and looking at them separately, distinctly, and together, and boiling this down to what a human conversation means. 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Sorry to keep you till the end there, but Parker, welcome to the joint. You're welcome to stay after if you like. Welcome to Troubled Minds. You're on with Mike and James. We're talking the Highgate Vampire tonight, the monster that wrote itself. How you doing? We got about 2.5 minutes, and then you're welcome to stay after the break. Thanks for popping in here. Welcome to the joint, my man. Test 1, 2. Parker on the Discord. Negative. Make sure, guys, if you jump in here, you do reset your Discord before you come in. It's been the bane of my existence for several years before I figured out what the hell is actually going on. Not saying that's the case here. Sometimes it's just audio stuff. But anyway, stay right there, Parker. Jump in whenever you can if your audio starts working. But I cannot hear you in the moment. It does work because we hear James. So anyway, all right. So you get the idea. Like there's so much here that's really, really dense when it comes to the idea of the egregore. When it comes to the idea of these places. I see you, buddy. Are you there? Test 1, 2. Your audio's
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Now you're coming through. All right. Got to keep it yes. tighter than usual here. 1 minute, and then you're welcome to stay after the break. Parker, sexy young man.
All right, 1 minute. I can do it.
1 minute. Go for it.
1 minute. All right. Bicameral mind. Sorry, I was testing out this new system. So my theory I study a lot of psychology and mental imagery kind of concepts related to the zeitgeist, egregores, all that type of stuff, because I've had psychic experiences myself and been able to use emotion as like a tool, as I've mentioned before, for other people who have heard me before. So my theory on the bicameral mind with psychosomatic kind of integration of these weird vampire scenarios is there is the side to it that a lot of people talk about, it being types of predators that use the zeitgeistian kind of egregore and the mental imagery you perceive or subconsciously think of before time. And they use that as a cover, kind of. That's like the whole NHI using like mental things to control what you see. That like there's whole, like you were talking about before, the history and the 4 different categories of how you can approach this subject is exactly the same way that I approach the multi-perspective angulature of the bicameral and quadcameral mind perspectives of psychology and like mental ability. So it's weird how vampires really align with this psychology. Especially like Jung talked about vampires, Hegel talked about vampires. You go all the way back to like dialecticism. Like vampires are in there simply because they resonate so well. There's a reason Dracula's been studied so much in psychology. And yeah, that's it. There's a minute. I guess that was a minute.
That was a minute. And Marx is also buried in this cemetery, supposedly. So to add on to some of the names you were dropping there. Wild stuff. You're welcome to stay if you want to stay after the break. Fire stuff. You look great. You sound great. Appreciate the phone call. And you let me know. If you want to hang out and come back for a bit after the break, you just give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And we'll be right back. More with Parker, more with James. We got Derek the Night Stalker coming up in your calls as well. Don't go anywhere. The Highgate Vampire, the monster that wrote itself, is that even possible conceptually? Or are we asking the wrong question entirely? Be right back. More Troubled Minds in just one moment. See you on the other side of the break.
This is Troubled Minds. Your host, Michael Strange, the master of the mysterious, is here to guide you through the shadows of the unexplained.
Let's check the news. A massive geological event from September 2023 is finally yielding answers and raising new questions. When more than 25 million cubic yards of rock and ice collapsed into a large inlet on Greenland's eastern coast, the impact generated a mega tsunami reaching approximately 650 feet high. The wave set the inlet rocking like a bathtub, a phenomenon called a seiche, and that rhythmic motion pressed against the seafloor with enough force to send a seismic pulse around the entire planet, repeating every 92 seconds for 9 consecutive days. Seismologists say no seiche has ever produced a global signal this persistent, and a collaboration of more than 70 researchers from 41 institutions are still working to understand the full mechanics of what happened. Shifting now to a story closer to home, or at least closer to your browser. A widely circulated essay by a writer named Shubham Bose is drawing renewed attention to what many are calling the deliberately hostile design of the modern web. Bose documented that a visit to the New York Times front page triggered 422 separate network requests and consumed 49 megabytes of data, taking nearly 2 minutes to fully load. He found that The Guardian's mobile layout, buried under ads and pop-up windows, sometimes leaves just 11% of the screen available for actual article content. As Bose put it bluntly, your frustration is the product. Tech commentator John Gruber, who has been testing a new device without content-blocking software installed, called the current state of advertising-laden websites almost beyond parody. And finally, in what may be the most concise story we've covered today, one source we attempted to pull for tonight's broadcast returned a single message: please enable JavaScript and disable any ad blocker. No content. No context. Just a wall. It serves, perhaps, as a fitting close to everything else we just told you. Thanks for listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network.
That's funny. That's funny. That was an actual article I put in there, so I'm not sure if it was the AI's making a joke now. Like, is it gaining sentience? What the hell is that? Yeah, so Parker's going to stick around for a little bit, Derek. So give it some space there after the bottom of the hour, and then the rest is yours. Yeah, that was funny. I kind of feel like I was trolled by a robot. I mean, is that possible? What's up, guys? Hope you're well. The Quantum Dragon Rose. Who'd I miss? I missed you guys. Lammas, Fina, the official Llama, Troubled Minds. Herschel, Matzow, Eric. I see you guys. Derek, the Night Stalker, coming up. Daryl. Who'd I miss? Puff, Merlin, great stuff. Cubs Future over there. Thanks again for all the support and everybody hanging out and being part of this. Yeah, look, no answers. I think it's fascinating, this stuff, and how all these ideas do come together. And the occultism aspect of this in terms of also neuroscience, right? Like, it's funny. You can do that quad cameral mind, as Parker was saying here. And this becomes something not as simple as, black and white as usual, right? The binary question. The universe is complicated, and let's talk about it. Here we go. Troubled Minds coming up. Unseen Steve McQueen, I see you there. Here we go. Troubled Minds happening now. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. Yada, yada, all the places, all the things. TroubledMinds.org. Click the Discord link. Come say hi. Phone number's there, 702-857-6939. Tonight we're talking about the Highgate Vampire. This incident that happened in 1968, 1969, 1970. Made some movies, right? A single movie in 1970. And right after that, in this particular Highgate graveyard in the United Kingdom, or Old Britain, people started seeing spooks, spirits. And until it was named a vampire, then people started seeing the vampire. Culminates in this larger mob attacking a graveyard on Friday the 13th after some television program sort of featured the story. I mean, look, as usual, this stuff is complicated, fascinating. And what the hell is actually happening here? And does the land itself hold a story? I think that's one of the things that kind of catches me with this. And we have dabbled in this in the past, of course, but in this particular case, it seems as if maybe now the vampire story has been cemented to this geographical location, the actual pin on a map, and maybe it'll never leave. Or maybe it will. Who knows? Love to hear your thoughts one more time. 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Thanks for being patient. Let's go back to Parker. Parker on the Discord. How you doing, my man? What you got for us? Continue as you were. You were muted. And welcome back.
Now I shouldn't be.
Now you shouldn't be. So, you sound great. Welcome to the thing.
There we go.
Go right ahead.
All right. Hey, guys. How you doing?
Pretty good. No complaints out of me.
All right. Awesome. So, where was it lifting off? All right. So I was looking at the Highgate case because I just got home when you started streaming, so I hadn't really had a chance to do much reading on it. So I just kind of got what you were talking about it. And yeah, this case is really interesting. I have never really heard about this before, especially the hunters and the occultist angle to it. Sean Manchester and David Farrant were like competing to solve this case at one point. And this was when was this?
1970.
It seems like this has been reoccurring in like over and over again, this case specifically.
Yeah, so one of these individuals passed away in 2019. So this has been a 50-year-old feud, basically.
True Tale of the Feuding Vampire Hunters. Yeah, this is really interesting. I've never heard of this before. Where did you find this originally? Like, I'm just curious.
I actually found this on Claude, believe it or not. I mean, I've got AI psychosis, obviously, but yeah, but I asked it. I've been asking Claude, hey, find us some really fascinating historical tidbits that are true, but also very troubled mind style. And the last one we did, the Psychomantium, it came up with that. This one, it came up with tonight as well. Tons of good stuff here. What's your thought? Go ahead. If you're there, Hiker Emoji says, "Hey Parker."
Anymore. What happened?
I don't know. Hiker Emoji says, "Parker, join the Discord to connect with our amazing friends." Yes, please do that. Yeah. Okay, we got Parker. Can't hear. Test 1 2. Nothing. Got nothing. Yeah. Hey, Discord's been cranky the last couple shows too, so there's that as part of this. So let me know. Just jump right in. Anything on that, James? And we'll set this up for Derek after Parker here. Lots of stuff in play, and if you got an idea, go for it.
Yeah, the fascinating thing to me about this is something I've been thinking about the whole show, and that debate.
I can't hear anything. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Go, James. Sorry.
That debate thing, that debate arena thing. It mentioned something that I was thinking about, which is once the whole vampire thing starts, the witnesses of the other things that were seen there were sort of ignored or brushed aside, which you seem to. I see that happening again and again with major events throughout
move on to
time.
I'm still muted. My system's messing up.
So it's really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a good point. And this is what I like about this thing. Like I've been kind of feeding some ideas into it. And again, this is I built this thing myself. It's called Debate Arena. It just takes different archetypes and then kind of talks about these ideas. Shout out Parker. Appreciate that very much. He said he couldn't hear us. Don't worry about the tech issues. It does happen. Discord's been super cranky the last couple shows, so I don't really know what's happening, but I do know that it's been difficult to kind of put these shows together because it's James had some massive problems, and it's not something we can fix directly because it's happening on his client. It's happening through the internet. I don't know. I don't even know what's going on. But anything else, James? And we'll go to Derek the Night Stalker.
Yeah, just that again. You see that with this case. You see that with a lot of the whole UFO phenomenon with popular figures becoming popular and again having their own agendas. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but that is a common thing. These larger narratives form, and the individual narratives they get lost or ignored.
Yeah, well said. And I think that idea of the UFO popularity aspect is the same thing. These two sort of vampire hunting occultists having this feud that goes on their entire lives till one guy passes away tragically in 2019. And so this is what we're dealing with in the UFO community, in the larger community of consciousness. And, people just want to fight. Like I said, the Twitter slap fight, Jerry Springer aspect of conversation. And like I said, I've said this a lot. I'll continue to say this. Look, I say some things that are going to offend you, going to offend your sensibilities, your belief systems. But that's not the point. The point is to look at them outside of those dogma cycles, as I like to say. And dogma cycles are not just religion. They are many other things too. Again, a belief in capitalism, right, is a dogma cycle. I can envision the argument both ways, but you see what I mean. Like you can sort of fractal this into so many other ways of belief that, well, we're all hypocrites. That's my point, to boil it down to super fast. Anything else, James? And we'll go to Derek the Night Stalker.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think it's bias is another thing too. It's another sort of name for that. And we all have those as well. And all we can do is try to be aware of them and try not to let them influence us any more than they already do.
Amen. Very well said. And that's the point. And that's why I talk about it sort of as that. And I try my best to be that radically agnostic person, because I think it's important to be able to see the world from that quad-cameral mind and beyond, as Parker was saying there. And yeah, fire stuff. Appreciate the call. Thanks, James. You were the best, as you know. Stay there. We'll wrap up in just a moment here. But instead, let's, for the moment, go to Derek the Night Stalker. You know him, you love him. Derek in Massachusetts. What is going on? The Night Stalker. How you doing, brother? Thanks for being flexible at the bottom of the hour there. Shout out to Parker. That sucks. It happens. It's happened to all of us the past couple of days, the past couple of shows. But tonight it's going to work. We're going to give it the good. Everybody give it the good juju. Yeah, think positively about the technology tonight. And welcome, Derek. Let's hear what you got. Welcome to the thing. How are you?
Yeah, I'm hoping it hangs on for me now. It was giving me a little trouble before, but it seems to be going smooth. Yeah, I got a bunch of unorganized notes here because it's a busy night. So I like to have some kind of like trajectory with the points, but this is just going to be a kaleidoscope of points, I think. So the big thing I want to get to is kind of this egregore creation and stuff. And to me, I don't know if this is right or not, but to me, the idea of a tulpa or an egregore is kind of something that we create. And I like the idea. I've been calling them formless pre-thought forms. So there's like a step before that. So it's not coming out of our mind. It's something that's formless, that exists, that knows this process of tulpa creation, egregore creation, and specifically inseminates us with ideas so that it can birth its.
Following you. Got a little bit of a hiccup. You're good. So inseminates us with these ideas so it can birth. You cut out. It has been
to be born.
You're good. I can rebrief you. So inseminates us with these ideas to create something for itself. It cut right at that moment. So sorry about that.
Yeah. Basically, it was just that. So rather than it coming out of our mind whole cloth, like accidentally, or just from us, that we were used. We're used as like some kind of birthing, like some kind of 3D printer for its own body or whatever. And I think we can brainstorm this, but one that popped in my head was placeboids, like a placebo or a plasmoid, but a placeboid, something that like comes out of, is birthed out of myths like this. You know what I mean? A placeboid, something that like we are told that it's real, so then it becomes real. You know? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I dig that. I wonder too. So that would be very fitting. One that what's that disease with the cats and the. Like it was on the commercial during the break there. Yeah, toxoplasmosis as an astral or metaphysical version of this, right? Like it infects us somehow as a symbiote of an idea to birth itself into reality, which is right down your alley. And I think the point you're making, right? The collapsing the pillars of reality is what you've been saying for a long time now. But in this particular context, it means that whatever that astral or metaphysical entity is, it needs us as that prism to birth itself into the real realm, which is our mind's eye.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it goes back to the Cthulhu thing that we always talk about, that if these great old ones are kind of cast out of reality or the dreamer dreams or something like that, that Cthulhu was kind of reaching in through different mechanisms in order to get itself into the zeitgeist so that it can birth itself. Like it's outside of reality and it needs to find a weakness in the pillars of reality you're talking about. And one of those weaknesses is the cracks of a psyche of a crazy man, you know, like named Lovecraft. You get that in there over the course of 100 years. It gets to this boiling point. Maybe it'll get more and more, and then people will start seeing actual Lovecraftian entities running around and stuff. And I think it might be like kind of simpler, like things like just with the phenomena working just via expectation. Or let me follow my notes. So at play here we have movie magic at play. Like people call like I was watching the movie Babylon from a couple of years ago about like the 1920s Hollywood and stuff. And then talking about there's like the magic that happens on set that just like it's chaos, absolute chaos beforehand. But as soon as the camera's rolling, you get just weird synchronicity and like butterflies will fly up and land on your shoulder and just things that you can't predict because of some kind of intangibility with movie making. There's a movie magic that goes on. So the idea that this inception point was during that movie magic, I think is interesting. The fact that Christopher Lee is like Christopher Lee, like the actor, right? Is at the center of this. He's the real life inspiration for James Bond. He's Ian Fleming's like step cousin or something like that. So and he worked for Christopher Lee was a real life British Sir Christopher Lee. Sorry, excuse me. Is a real life British intelligence officer during World War II. Whose dangerous covert missions and background as Ian Fleming's step cousin directly inspired many facets of James Bond's character. I find that interesting. 007 is based on this guy. So Christopher Lee as some type of legend, a magnet, some type of this ephemera kind of like collects itself around this person that kind of is a magnet for myth. And then you talked about location already. I was going to throw the Karl Marx thing in there. I found it interesting. Also, George Michael is buried there. So maybe in the future, people will start hearing like "Wake me up before you go." People hearing strange apparitions that way. And they also called it a plague pit because people were thrown in plague victims were thrown in this grave site. And like James says, there were ghostly apparitions and stuff that were seen beforehand. So where I'm going to go, but I'm about to cough and I need a drink, that story and myth and this kind of what's going on over time is kind of the forging of these entities. That is kind of raw material spookiness forged into these myths by our mind, basically. But what do you think about that?
I dig it. James, if you got anything, go ahead.
Yeah, I do think that that's the thing. Whatever was being seen there, if it was any kind of like sort of dark figure or sometimes spirits, their souls appear to be almost dead, like they appear to be very pale or any of those things, that does sort of coincide with the appearance in a way of vampires in some cases. So again, there may have been similarities there in what people saw that, then were just taken as part of that being similar to vampires that were then, by one of these two people here, just that was chosen to be the form, and that's what it ended up becoming, even if it was just in people's minds. Even if it was still ghosts or spirits there, in the minds of people, it was vampires.
Exactly. Mike, you got any? Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. Just wild stuff. Like I just trying to peel some space out for you guys. I mean, this whole thing, like I said, the mind's eye is really, really resonant here because we are able to kind of create whatever we want to create. And again, art imitating life, life imitating art, and these cycles just continue to happen. And when you have a space that has enough of this, as I like to call it, that resonant energy of the story itself, like how do you untangle yourself? Like I said, you need a ton of sage, you need a ton of priests, kind of like throwing holy water on the land or something. Like how do we get out of these cycles? It's just a weird concept, all of this, but I love every bit of it.
Yeah, this is one of my most fascinating parts to me about the phenomenon and the Big P phenomenon in general is that we're kind of noticing that with whether it's UFOs or anything, that we're being the observer, that we're kind of necessary to the process, that these things are trying to reach out to us, or something's trying to reach out to us, or something needs us, like throughout different myths, like the Archons needing humanity to bridge the gap between realms and stuff, or something needs us kind of to create form. And I think that's based on expectation. I think it's just like kind of the way the big bad wolf wears Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother's clothing and stuff to kind of deceive her. I think that kind of whoever the observer walks in, whatever kind of paints that that person has on their palette in the form of memories and expectations and culture, that's the colors and paints that are used for this entity to draw itself using your the information that you have inside. And I think that's talk about the Cthulhu thing a lot. We talk about ad nauseum the UFO phenomena and how Kenneth Arnold, the big first flying saucer news story, he didn't actually see a flying saucer. He saw a chevron-shaped craft, but because people after that expected to see a saucer, then all of a sudden saucer sightings started picking up like crazy because the expectation fueled the phenomena. The power of attention is like Joseph Campbell says, how do you kill a god? You ignore it. And how do you birth a god? Is you talk about it, pay attention. How do you birth a legend? How do you birth a myth? You just got to keep talking about it and fueling that fire. The first commandment is I'm the only God you should worship. It's not that there's no other gods. It's only pay attention to me because attention is important. And so I think the kind of what's happening is kind of if there was a lot of spookiness and kind of this raw spookiness of people seeing entities and stuff, that we're seeing some type of birth or some type of forging happen using our mind. And I think it's interesting that kind of the trajectory of sightings is that the early one for this Highgate Vampire story, or kind of what the inception part of the story is just a dark figure with glowing red eyes, just a dark shape with glowing red eyes. And then the next piece of it is actually a gray figure, so it adds a little bit of color, and then we get more specific sightings, and it's the focus is coming in, the details are kind of coming in, and it's it's kind of some kind of, and then the occultist fighting is some kind of push and pull that I think is necessary, some type of push and pull, like the light side and the dark side of the Force. We talked about, is the Force good or bad show or whatever, and it has some kind of agenda and it's pushing us to a location, and that back and forth is two legs walking or some type of locomotion, or some type of breathing, some type of like this. We're kind of putting some kind of a breath into this Frankenstein myth monster or whatever, and then it also kind of adds energy. It's these lightning strikes for this thing. Like even like with the Patterson Gimlin film, is it fake? Is it real? And like one of the, like Patterson said it on his deathbed, said it was fake, and Gimlin saying it's real. And now there's new stuff coming out this week, and it's that push and pull puts it back in the zeitgeist. And I'm sure there's going to be more sightings popping up now, just because people are talking about Bigfoot, thinking about Bigfoot, and it just the forge aspect reminds me of like, to forge a sword, you don't just need heat. You need heat and then cold, and then heat and then cold, and heat and cold. So there's these two occultists fighting, or the UFO debate: is it real or is it fake? Or anything that it needs this back and forth in order to kind of to CPR in order to give this thing breath. To give this Frankenstein breath. I'm rambling. What do you think of that?
No, well said. I think that's it. That's exactly it. And so the art imitating life, and then the cycle that kind of continues as part of it, is exactly as you're describing. If you don't have both of those, the song of fire and ice, then this doesn't continue to flourish. But we're stuck in this, and so it does. And like I said, I don't know it's been stuck in my mind since I started talking about this. It's weird, right? So you do the write up, you read the things, and you come prepared and all this stuff, and you're like, this is an amazing story. But then as I'm talking, I'm thinking of some things that I didn't think about before, because again, standing up and speaking and kind of just going through your thoughts in a catalog, you start to recognize some things, maybe some holes you missed in the setup as part of the conversation. But the one that keeps sticking with me is how would you correct this? How do you alleviate this? And I'm not sure we can. I think when I say baked into the land, baked into that space, that the power of the Lich arrives, the undead, it's baked into that land, to that geographic pinpoint. And so how do we change that? I don't think it's possible. Like everybody would have to move away and forget the story forever. And then it would be buried, and that would be it. Otherwise, if people continue to live there, that whisper is, kind of talked about as, we don't really believe that, but people still bring it up. So it still persists. And even if it's an old legend that has no merit or whatever, it still persists.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we see different cultures kind of doing that, like whether it's the Native Americans being like, don't talk about Skinwalker, or just different, like just the trope of kind of like shrunken heads and some kind of skeletons to kind of ward off this specific area, like in Kong Skull Island, like the kind of portal part where those monsters come. Kind of they put a lot of stuff saying, don't go here, like beware, like careful, skull and crossbones type of stuff. That the only way that just the mechanism is going to where the the form could change, but if there's some kind of raw spookiness there, that just it's some kind of a wind that doesn't have a sail to catch, like a kite to know it exists. That like once a person walks in there, once an observer walks in there, then all of a sudden this wind has sails all of a sudden. So the only way to like defeat the wind is to not give it anything to, I don't know, just to forget about it. To how do you kill a god? Just don't talk about it. Joseph Campbell. Yeah, just in case you want to bring Parker back in, I'll hop off. But Christoph, you guys, thank you.
You were the best. Appreciate you very much. You know we love him. Derek, the Night Stalker, Derek in Massachusetts. Please give him a follow. TroubledMinds.org.
I hope my internet was okay.
No, you're good. You're good. Right. It was just literally that one little bit. And don't worry, we'll fix it in post. I've got a magical thing and magical editor. Go check the other chat. I've got a magical editor that'll fix everything. So don't you worry. We got your back, brother. Appreciate you very much. You're the best. Again, troubledminds.org/friends. Scroll down. Give James a follow. Give Derek, the Night Stalker, a follow. It's all alphabetical, like I said. So if you're not on this list, and you should be, all you got, it's an in list, not an out list. All you have to do is help us one iota. Just help us somehow. That's it, right? Like you help me, you help us. We'll do our best to help you. Okay. That's it. TroubledMinds.org/friends, or click the friends link on the website. Scroll down. Night Stalker is under N. James is under J, of course. Please follow these people. 95% of the stuff is free, like I always say. So please make some accounts where you don't have some accounts. Go follow so many of these amazing people that make this show go. It's not just me. I'm a weird guy and I can talk, but you recognize the beauty of that collaborative effort and what comes out of it. I've got blind spots. I'm here standing, kind of talking, praying somebody will call and help me out. To shout out James, always the glue of the show, and Johnny on the spot, and really, really filling in a ton of stuff, allowing me to catch my breath or reformulate my thoughts. Yeah, all this stuff is very important. It is a collaborative effort. And if we don't help each other, what are we doing? That's what's on my mind. As always, we'll get back to James for the final word. 702-857-6939 would be the number to call. It is working tonight, but nobody into the phone calls. I was going to bring Parker back up. If you want to do that, I'll invite Parker back. Otherwise, we'll go to James and then wrap this up. It's complicated, and that's okay. Like I said, I think conversations that are complicated are okay, because everything does not have to have a resolution. Parker, welcome back. You are muted, unmute, and you should be good to go. You got a few minutes left for you. All yours, brother. Welcome back to the thing. Go right ahead.
Thank you for your patience. I am just happy that it finally works. Oh my goodness. It's hard to actually get things working. So
tell me about it.
Now that I actually have the video working, I have my books. So this was the guy I kept mentioning. Oh, wow, it's backwards. I wonder if I can fix that. We have the technology.
Wait, no, don't change it. We see it straight. You see it backwards. Fine. We see it straight.
Oh, you do?
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, I'm an ignoramus at heart. There you go. So Kevin Kahn, this is the book I've mentioned before in previous past. So related to, like, we always keep going back to perception and how we perceive a lot of these things, whatever you want to call it, beings, archetypes, yada, yada, right? So the way that Kevin Kahn describes them as a monad interface. So it's kind of, and they call them 5-body monad interface. So we have the left brain hemisphere, verbal, analytical, pain self, the right brain hemisphere, nonverbal, big picture, transcendent, the enteric nervous system, which is like your gut. And then there's the bioplasma interface, which is actually related to my psycho research, which is what he calls a dream substance and subtle energy field. I would call it the, I had a great way to describe it. I'll do that later. And then 5 is the monadic autonomous system, which is kind of like the cosmic dashboard of coordinations, or one could call it the golden geometric mean calculations, or, how we kind of look at those spots in space that have like almost zero gravity because everything's balanced, kind of like that. But yeah, Kevin Kahn, super interesting stuff. And he even has practices on here to how to achieve some of the things he's achieved, and he's very different. So I just wanted to do that, show you guys that. And also the other book I always recommend, Schlemmer, Only Planet of Choice. And of course you've read it already, or some of it. You said you didn't read all of it, but I've only read this once all the way through. It's pretty thick, but it's super interesting. 35 years of her talking through Tom or whoever. So yeah, I guess that's over a few minutes, so I'll stop there.
You're good. Fantastic stuff. I appreciate it. You, again, good looking young man. If you haven't joined the Discord, come check out this good looking young man. Parker, appreciate it very much. Give him a follow. troubleminds.org/friends. Scroll down and it is right there. It'll say Parker. It's alphabetical. Go check out his YouTube channel. Let's encourage this man to make content. We need to hear, look, this is the whole point. We need to hear people speak. We need to hear people think. We need to synthesize information and tell others what it means to us, because other people recognize this in that counterpoint of the void that they feel and don't recognize what it is. And we just need to keep seeding these ideas of, dare I suggest, love and light. I hate the term so much, but there's so many positive things that just don't get touched on. Look, like I said, you go back years on this show, and I've never been a doom monger. It's not my thing. I'm not here to tell you the end is nigh. And there's that aspect of beauty that we need to recognize, not just in ourselves, but in each other. You're the best, Parker. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for fixing the things. You look fantastic. Do the thing. You sound fantastic, and looking forward to more content that you make. Appreciate you very much. Have a great night.
You too, sir. Have a good one.
Thank you very much, Parker. troubleminds.org/friends. James, final thoughts.
Great calls from Derek and from Parker. I just want to mention again 2 things. Just like so many other cases, and I mentioned this already, but I think it's important to mention twice, the witnesses of the individual experiences were sort of ignored or overlooked. And you hear that over and over again. Also, it's fascinating that how some cemeteries and graveyards you hear about them in paranormal circles, but there's so many other ones where you hear nothing about them, or you hear it's a very positive place. So this is, just in case anyone is wondering, this is not an example of your average, or this is not, this case regarding this one graveyard is not the way things go for all graveyards or cemeteries by any means. And that's fascinating, because then why? Why do certain ones have this kind of anomalous activity, and whatever it may be, whatever is gathering the attention of people to there, and then why do others not?
Well said. And I'm remiss. I didn't pull up a map and look. Maybe there's some really, really deep stuff going on with rivers, shout out rivers, and some of these other amazing things geographically with this place. I should have done that. I had some extra time tonight. I should have pulled up a map and looked at it, because maybe there's things we can quantify. I don't know. As usual, well said, James, because like you said, you can't really just say, well, a battlefield's going to always be haunted, or a graveyard's going to always be haunted. It seems like there are particular places that are predisposed to be supercharged for this type of stuff. And so what does that mean? Human resonant energy for sure, but what does it mean in a larger context? That's the whole point of talking about these ideas. I don't know. Are we going to discover some of this stuff? Maybe. And I'm excited for that. But until then, we'll keep talking about it. James, you are the absolute best. You know it. Thanks again for jumping in here. Thanks for, again, great stuff over there with Ricky. Shout out Ricky, Anything is Possible podcast, Beyond the Possible. He does on Sunday nights with James. Merlin, shout out over there, doing great stuff. And there was somebody else, I'm sorry, I don't know the name, but I dipped in for a minute, and you guys slaying it as always. So keep up the good work in all the places. Keep thinking about ideas that are challenging, and keep I don't know, just keep being positive in a negative space. And this is not that space, but the rest of the zeitgeist is so much negativity. Like I said, the doom mongering, the end is nigh. Look, if the end is nigh, what can you do about it? Right? You face it. And I think about Tom Petty, right? That song, right? Tom Petty's like hell a small guy. Right? He's like 5'6" or something. He's a little guy. And he, sings the song, "You stand me up at the gates of hell and I won't back down." Right? Like it doesn't matter as long as you've got the courage to face it. So, okay. So if the end truly is nigh, and I'm not suggesting it is, doesn't matter from here to then, as long as we do our best to inspire each other, to help each other, and to pick each other up when we stumble and fall down. I don't think so. If you want to help Troubled Minds, help our friends. troubledminds.org/friends. Please do the things. Help our friends. So many smart people out there that have made this show go. Please, please, please. I say it, like I said, 10 times a show. Please, you're hurting my feelings if you're not following these amazing people. Let's inspire people to make more ideas, synthesize them, and get them out there in ways that are accessible to others. If you want to help us directly, spread the word. Let people know a conversation is happening where we will not tell you who to vote for. We will not follow mainstream narratives, and we march to our own drummer. That's it. That's the point. We look at the world in a different way, and I will not apologize for it. Sorry, I'm not going to do it. I'm beyond apologies at this point. I'm too old for that crap, and I'm going to keep thinking, keep dreaming, and wondering what comes next. I hope you will take the journey with me. If you want to help us, troubledfans.com. Shout out Kelly out there. Appreciate that. Yeah, he said maybe they're just, who said it in the chat? Maybe they're Hollywood magicians or whatever, showing up for the high noon duel, and then nobody casting a fireball. Anyway, I think it's fantastic, all of this. Go read up on the source material. Like I said, what the hell's going on in the world we live in? Okay, as we finish, it goes exactly like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night. Don't worry about all the shenanigans tonight. We'll fix it in post. I've got a magic system. We'll see you guys on Tuesday night, God willing. Have a fantastic one. Thanks for hanging out and being part of this. We'll see you soon. Have a great one. Wrong button. I'll fix that in post too.